Welcome back, everyone, to Brown Bag Bets, powered by BETSPERTS. We are your daily dose of quick hit handicapping and sports betting picks. Happy Friday, everyone. I'm Alex Christenson, and joining me for the final time this week, Mr. Matthew Rooney. How was your week? Did you enjoy it? Are you disappointed you're not going to be back on Monday? Do you want to try to find another vacation for Andy? Should I take a break?
I'm going to be a little bit bummed when Monday morning I'm not plugging in 17 different cords into my computer and scrambling around 10:15 to get ready for this show. But no, it's been a fun week. Been happy to fill in for Andy. I'm sure everybody's happy to get Andy back from vacation and back on the air. But I'm looking forward to you guys taking some more vacations in the future and me being able to give out some losing baseball bets.
Well, we're going to do a little quick Thursday recap. Matt kind of gave away the ending there. He had a nice start. The rest wasn't so hot. The football game, well, the NFL game was super boring. I ended up actually watching the CFL game. I don't know. Did you know that the CFL season opener was last night?
I knew the CFL season opener was on when I saw people tweeting about it. Eventually, I had no idea up until that point. But I was a little bit more focused on the NFL game. And, hey, I gave out some baseball losers, but shout out us. We gave out a first touchdown score, that plus 800. Kalen Ballage was the first touchdown score, so that plus 800 for the field. There you go. We made you some money if you decided to use your free win bet, risk-free bet on our pick.
It was. That was pretty fun. I didn't really watch much of the game. It looked pretty ugly. And again, the CFL game was on. CFL is so much fun. If you're watching preseason football, poke around. It was Hamilton. They were playing Winnipeg. They have these giant end zones. They only play with 3 downs. It's crazy, folks.
But I love the CFL. It's a lot of fun.
It is, but we don't really know too much about that. What we do know a little bit about, though, is the NFL. We've been talking about futures a little bit this week, and Matt wanted to talk a little bit about the AFC South. We've got the division odds up here. Dan's going to pull up for us. There was one team that stuck out to you, Matt. We know the Colts are having some issues with Carson Wentz. More importantly, they're having some issues with Quentin Nelson, arguably one of the best offensive linemen in the league, and really might actually be more important than the Wentz injury. But overall, as you look at this, what are you thinking?
The Titans' odds have even shrunk even further. Excuse me, they were minus 134 earlier this week. I know the Colts are probably going to come close to a quarterback trade or acquisition, and I think that's one in this division they could probably get over if it was just the loss of Wentz. But Quentin Nelson going down, that significantly hampers that offensive line. I know they brought in Eric Fisher as one of their tackles, and that should help them a little bit. But Quentin Nelson is the anchor of that offensive line. He's the best offensive lineman in the NFL. That's a tough loss. And even when you come back from that, a foot injury for an offensive lineman sometimes can linger a little bit. So that's when you worry about. And the Titans, while they haven't done a ton to address that defense, their offense has just kind of become such a well-oiled machine. And in their case, their best defense is Derrick Henry carrying the ball 25, 35 times a game and winning the time of possession, but controlling the ball for 2/3 of the game. And I think they can largely do that in this division. If I was going to throw some money somewhere else, I might sprinkle a little bit on the Jaguars. Just maybe they get hot in a division where, you can take advantage of a Titans defense, or maybe the Colts aren't all that healthy. But Titans at almost even money to win that AFC South. They've been really good the last couple of years. They've improved the defense a little bit. It's still not great, but they've tried a little bit on that end, and I'm banking on Derrick Henry not slowing down.
Yeah, it's one of those divisions where, when you first kind of talked to me about this, I was like, yeah, the Titans, but it is odd that the number kind of keeps moving against them. I guess maybe
it does worry me a little bit
about Wentz. I mean, I haven't heard too much about them making a quarterback move. I mean, they've been pretty committed to saying they'll play one of their guys, Jacob Eason or somebody else. I mean, have you heard anything specific about them in terms of making a quarterback move, or you just kind of that's what you think, given what the numbers
being in Chicago and Nick Foles being on the roster and the Frank Reich connection, that's a story every day because the Bears want to dump that contract. Foles spoke to the media yesterday and spoke quite a bit about Frank Reich, and it seems like he wants to be there without actually saying he's going to be there. That said, I do think they probably end up making a move, whether that's Nick Foles. I think I saw some Vegas odds for who the week 1 starter is going to be for the Colts, and Jacob Eason wasn't even on the board. So Vegas seems to think they're going to make a move. I think it's Nick Foles just because of the familiarity, the ability to just come right in, know the system, and they like Foles loves Reich loves Foles. I think that's probably the move. I'm not sure after watching Nick Foles the last couple seasons here, last season here. I'm not sure what he's got left in the tank, and he's got a bad back, but I don't trust necessarily the Colts with a question mark at quarterback and their best offensive lineman. Maybe that's probably the best player on their team out for maybe 3 months.
Yeah, the Quentin Nelson thing is pretty big. I like what Patrick mentioned. Without Art Smith, we're curious to see what the offense does. That would be my big hang up with the Titans. I mean, can Ryan Tannehill really do this another year? Can Derrick Henry come back after having a couple seasons now with a really big workload? We'll kind of see what happens, but I think you're right. The question marks around the Colts probably make this Titans line. We were, again, like you said, talking about minus 130, minus 140 yesterday. So, I mean, minus 110, minus 112. I think that's a pretty nice number. So I think you pushed me in that direction, Matt.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head there. This isn't as much of an endorsement of the Titans as it is a fade of the rest of the division now that the Colts are hurt. If the Colts are fully healthy, I'm probably taking them in the division, but they're hurt. They're not healthy. They have a lot of question marks, and that number's pretty good, being right close to even for the Titans, who've been in the playoffs the last couple seasons.
And if the division does get messy, I mean, if you watch the Jaguars and are heartened by their performance the first couple of weeks, I think you'll still have a chance to grab 9-1, something in that range.
Yeah.
So you can kind of wait on that, grab some Titans now, and we'll see what happens with the Colts. But I'm with you. There's a lot of optimism, I think, in this number that I don't really understand. But let's get to something really interesting. We don't talk hockey very often on here, Matt, but you're a hockey guy. And we finally have some hockey futures up. You were going through, you found some value here. Are you ready to break down hockey for the people?
I'm ready to break down hockey for the people. Last time I was actually on the show talking hockey, I hit a nice plus 550 bet in the Stanley Cup final. It was a Andrei Vasilevsky shutout, and that was he shut the Canadiens out to win the Stanley Cup. So while I'm struggling in baseball, you could technically say I'm still on a hot streak in hockey. I'm going to go through a couple of these numbers I found here. One of these numbers you'll probably like, Alex, but the Seattle Kraken have missed the playoffs at minus 155. It's only really at that number because the division is a little bit weaker. It's very top heavy with, Vegas and Edmonton. They'll both be in the playoffs, but after that, it's kind of waiting to see who's going to take a step forward. That said, the expansion draft strategy that Kraken had this year wasn't really like the one Vegas had a few years ago, where Vegas was in the process, the business of trying to win right away, because they were the first sports franchise in Vegas. Vegas, you got to be flashy, all that. They went all in to win right away, whereas the Kraken right now are kind of valuing cap space a little bit more. They're not necessarily, they would like to obviously, be a competitive team next year, but that's not their immediate concern. They want cap space. They want to load up on assets and be able to take advantage of that in the future. And it showed in the expansion draft. They didn't really go all out and take the best roster they possibly could have. So I'm going to bank on a few teams in that West division, or Pacific division, like the Kings, that maybe take a step forward. The Flames are better than they were last year, and jump them, make the playoffs. So I think those would probably be your four. I think the Kraken do miss it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I like what you said about the expansion draft, because you think we are getting some value in this number because people are remembering Vegas.
Yes.
I know when you first mentioned
100%.
this to me, I kind of made that joke, but I think there's definitely a possibility that people are thinking back to Vegas and going, well, this team can do it. It's a weak division.
That's what you see. A lot of people on Twitter, people making bets say, well, Vegas just did it. They just went to the Cup. The Kraken can do it too. That's because Vegas, they sacrificed assets and cap space to get the best. They went out, they did all they could to field the best possible team to win right now, and they're facing some cap issues now because of it. Seattle's going the opposite direction. Seattle, you look at their fan base in every sport, they're selling out arenas. They're one of the most passionate sports cities in America. It's the fifth team that they had the Sonics, they have the Seahawks. Their soccer team, I can't even remember their name right now, but they sell out their stadium all the time. They're not. That's it. The Sounders. Seattle's not really, the Kraken front office ownership isn't really worried about selling out that stadium, at least in year one, because they're probably going to have still a pretty good fan base. Be happy to have those guys there. They don't need to win. It's not as important and apparent that they go out and win right away as it was with Vegas. So that's where I am at that. I think they missed the playoffs. I think down the road, they'll take advantage of the cap space. I think Ron Francis is a good general manager. I think they'll be in a good spot eventually. It's just they're going to be more of your typical expansion team that I think struggles out of the gate a little bit. Next, I got the Florida Panthers to win the Stanley Cup at plus 2,200. They're about right at the end of that top third to win the Cup in terms of odds. I like that value because they're going back to a little bit easier of a division this year. Last year they played with Carolina and Tampa up at the top, who were two of the best teams in hockey. Obviously, Tampa was the best team in hockey. Florida hasn't done a ton this offseason. They've stayed a little bit quiet, but they had one of the better teams in the NHL last year. They actually finished ahead of Tampa in the division, and they're going to have some cap space to make some moves at the deadline. Plus, I'm being from Chicago, being a Blackhawks fan, I'm a Joel Quenneville guy. I trust him behind the bench with a young, talented team. And they have probably the best player in the NHL that nobody really knows about, Alexander Barkov. He's a elite first-line shutdown center. He's, again, not to make a Chicago comparison, he's a lot like a young Jonathan Toews. He can go out and give you 80, be a point-per-game guy. He can score a lot, but also come out and be your shutdown center. So I like Florida. I like the young talent, and I like their ability to go out and add at the deadline. And the guy you might be familiar with, Alex, Sergei Bobrovsky's in net. He's a little bit inconsistent, but we were talking before the show how you need a hot, talented goalie in the playoffs if you're going to make a run. He is as inconsistent as he is. When he's on, he's as good as anybody. And if you have him making a run in the playoffs, it's at plus 2,200. I like that number. One you'll like here, the Philadelphia Flyers, plus 2,900. They've made some. This is, we're again talking before the show about the goaltender. This is banking on Carter Hart bouncing back and being the Carter Hart of his first year, not necessarily last year. He was not good last year. His rookie year, he was pretty darn good. He's one of the most heralded young goalie prospects in hockey. He's supposed to be very good, and people were calling him the next.
Sounds all too familiar.
It's fair enough. I know you're probably a little jaded as a Flyers fan, but they have a lot of talent in lines 1 through 4. They went out and added a couple defensemen this year, and Ryan Ellis and Rasmus Ristolainen, who are going to be a little bit more focused on playing a two-way game, whereas their blue line in past years was a lot more offensively focused. And I think that's where you saw a little bit of Carter Hart's struggles last year because he didn't get a lot of help defensively. So at plus 2,900, I like those odds. They're in a very tough division, and I actually think whoever comes out of that division is going to be battle-hardened come playoff time. It's a division with 7 teams legitimately that can make the playoffs. So making the playoffs is probably the tough part, but at plus 2,900, I think that's a pretty good number to get them that. They're right around middle of the pack in the NHL. And for how talented, for how high their ceiling is, if everything goes right, I think it's a good number. And this, I think Dan probably thought this was a homer pick when I put it on here, but Patrick Kane to win the Hart Trophy at plus 2,900, he's like number 15 or 20 on that list. Last year, he was right up there with Connor McDavid in the MVP race the entire way until about a month out of the season. He kind of ran out of gas because that Blackhawks team was just so lacking depth, and it was pretty much just him and Alex DeBrincat carrying the offensive load. Patrick Kane has a lot more help offensively in terms, in lines 1 through 4. He's got some more help defensively. They got a better goaltender. He's got a better team around him. And he finally has, for the first time in the last couple of years, a front office that has gone out and made a significant effort to make that team a contender in that division again. So I think you'll see a little bit of rejuvenated Patrick Kane. He's as talented offensively as anybody in the NHL. Even at age 33, he's still producing like an elite player. And Jeremy Colleton likes playing him about 22, 23 minutes a game, so he's going to play a whole lot of hockey this year. If he was, the third best odds to win the Hart Trophy, like plus 1,000, plus 750, I wouldn't go near it. But with Patrick Kane being the 15th or 20th best odds to win it at plus 2,900, I think there's just some insanely good value there. So I don't know if he's going to win it, but I think at that value, that's a ticket you have to take a flyer on.
Yeah, I like the way you talk about that last one. You kind of look through the list, and a lot of times that's how I look at the futures market. All right, let's see how they stacked everybody. Does that make sense? Then I'll kind of work backwards from there. Like you said, it's maybe a little bit of a homer pick if we're being honest here, but he should definitely be in the top 10 of that MVP market, or the Hart Trophy market. It's the same thing. Yeah. So you make a good point there. I like that. Definitely a little value in that number.
Yeah, see, and it's not all homer picks. Sometimes they are homer picks. I'll admit that. My White Sox picks here a lot of times are homer picks, but that one was actually a well thought out, calculated, good number. I don't know why he's that low pick.
I like that. And one of the best parts about tennis, Matt, you can't be accused of being a homer pick person. There's not really, I'm not aware of any Philadelphia tennis players. Maybe they're out there. I'm not sure. But we've got 3 picks for you. These will be early tomorrow morning, as well as today. We'll be going to Cluj-Napoca. Thank you for Dan, our wonderful producer, for looking up the correct pronunciation of that. Mihaela Buzarnescu will be playing, again, very early tomorrow morning Eastern time. These have been right around 4 or 5 in the morning, maybe even a little sooner than that. It's going to be playing Meyer Sharif, a very good player, someone who's put up some nice numbers on clay actually this week. This is one of the last clay tournaments. Sharif has been very good, but at lower levels, against higher competition, she hasn't really been quite great yet. Buzarnescu is someone that I think is still a little bit of underrated, coming off a devastating ankle injury that she's still working her way back from. Was one of the better clay players, especially in some of these smaller tournaments 2 seasons ago, and just a lot of value in my mind in this number at -105. I have this out to -135, almost 140. So -105, -110, -115. Those are all fine numbers to me. Think she should be a stronger favorite here. Again, against a younger player. She's starting to build some form, has looked good this week. Think she can actually win this tournament. So -105 on her. We talked about Miss Anna Konyu yesterday. She is playing this afternoon. We got her at -130. She looks like she's out to -140 some places. I would say -140 still okay. Wouldn't go any deeper than that number, though. Again, another player who sort of working her way back into form after a delay. I think is someone that we're going to have some value on here for at least a couple weeks before the market catches up. So happy to grab her at -130, -140 in a match where I have her -160, almost -170. And then a smaller play here in Concord. Yes, it's a WTA tournament. If you're looking around your book, it might be under WTA Challenger or WTA 125, something goofy like that. But Renata Zarazua, a young player who I generally like to back in North America. She does very well there, playing against Sue Shea. Shea, one of my favorite players to back, one of the smartest, most clever tennis players you'll see, is generally very good at finding errors in people's games and really kind of wedging her way into cracks and taking advantage of things. Zarazua is a pretty solid player. She's fairly consistent. I don't expect Shea to really mess things up that much. And, looking at this number, +225, Shea should be the favorite, but I don't know if it really should be this big. I would have Zarazua in this match, probably +175, +180. So at better than 2-1, some value in her there. So 3 tennis plays for us. The first one will be early tomorrow morning. Zarazua, I believe, starts in about an hour and a half, and then Konyu will be in a couple hours this afternoon in San Jose. Now, Matt, we got to do some baseball. How you feeling? You feeling okay? Can we put a positive finish on this week?
I'm feeling pretty good about these bets. The strikeout and win total, which I think you'll see coming up here, the strikeouts and to win bets have been fairly nice to me so far. We hit on that Ohtani one a couple days ago at +250. Lance Lynn is throwing for the Sox today. That actually starts at 1:20 Central Time, so just a couple hours here. He has over 5 strikeouts. I believe it's 5 of his last 6 starts. The Cubs offensively are not that great. And it's a rivalry matchup. I expect Lance Lynn to come out a little bit fired up. I like him to get 5 strikeouts. I like the White Sox to win. The Cubs, like we were just saying, have sold off. They do have Kyle Hendricks on the mound today. He's kind of their – he's their ace. He's not kind of their ace. He is their ace. He's the one remaining good player from that core still there. That said, I think Lance Lynn strikes out a good amount of players today. I do think the White Sox come out ready to play and win this one, bounce back from losing 2 or 3 against KC. Chris Bassett, 5+ strikeouts against the Rangers. He has, I believe, 4 of his last 6 starts. He's hit that total. He's pitched really well against the Rangers this year, and the Rangers offense just isn't really that good, especially with the departure of Joey Gallo. I think the A's win that game. I think he strikes out 5+. And I'm going to stick with some unders. I was looking up some pitching matchups here. We mentioned Sox Cubs under 9. You got Lynn versus Hendricks on the mound. You got 2 absolute aces going at it. The Sox offense has been struggling the last couple weeks. The Cubs offense isn't very good. The risk you do run into is a nice sunny afternoon at Wrigley Field. Sometimes the ball tends to fly a little bit more, but I think 9 runs is a lot with these 2 pitchers on the mound and how the Sox have been hitting the ball. Mets Phillies under 9.5. Kyle Gibson going for your Phillies. He's thrown really well since that trade. Marcus Stroman going for the Mets. He's got an ERA like under 3. He's been really good this year. Mets offense has also been struggling. So I think 9.5 with those 2 teams in a tight divisional race. I think that's a lot of runs. And Rangers A's under 8. This is more of a fading the Rangers play because I don't think their offense is very good. I trust Chris Bassett, and I don't think the A's are necessarily going to go out and score 7 or 8 runs today, though they are going up against – the concern is they're going up against Mike Fultonavich, who's been really bad his last few starts. That said, I'm kind of banking on the A's to keep the Rangers offense in check. So that's my parlay there. That's plus 574. I know we said don't chase them, but don't chase the odds. But I felt like after my week, I at least owed it to try one here, take one swing for the fence. So plus 574 on those 3 unders. I like rolling the dice, and I won't feel too bad if I lose that one because it's plus 574.
And you won't have to be here Monday to answer for it. So
exactly.
I like it.
Andy will.
I like it. And it's what Andy did, honestly, at the end of the Euros. So we'll see how that goes. Now, is there another way? Let's say, for example, you don't have a sports book. You can't parlay all this stuff together, but you happen to live in a state with a little app called PrizePicks. Is there something we could do maybe with that to help the people try to chase a big number here for some Friday action?
It's funny you bring that up because I decided this morning, it's a PrizePicks day. I decided to actually go out and put together a little PrizePicks bet. My entry, you can do over 1.5 hits plus walks for players, or you can do fantasy points. I play fantasy baseball. I'm not necessarily sure how fantasy points are calculated though, because I play in a categories league. So I think the over hits and walks is just a little bit easier to track for me. Anthony Rizzo, I have going over 1.5. These are all over, but it says there on the graphic. Anthony Rizzo, I have going over the 1.5. He's been on fire since coming to the Yankees, and he seems rejuvenated since leaving that Cubs team, and is in the thick of a pennant race with the Yankees, playing with that short porch out in right field in Yankee Stadium. I think he goes over that total. Jose Abreu has home runs in his last couple games, and he's historically played pretty well in these Cubs series, especially last year at Wrigley. He was fantastic in the middle of that MVP run. Nick Castellanos has been great all year. Why not roll the dice against the Pirates with him? I believe they're at home as well, so hitter's ballpark. And Nelson Cruz, I think Tampa is playing Baltimore, so he's going up against a lefty, and John Means who's on the mound, so you got a righty-lefty matchup, and Nelson Cruz is bring it back to the White Sox here. He's absolutely killed my team. I've seen him absolutely kill us the last couple of years. So over 1.5 bases, I think he probably gets that. I decided to opt for the win 3 out of 4. I went low risk here because if you win 3 out of 4, you make 1.5 times your money. And if all 4 hit, you win 5 times your money. You can also go and try and go for the home run, hit 4 out of 4, where you actually make 10x your dollar value. So that's a way to go too. I just went a little conservative today though with mine with the 3 out of 4.
And if you aren't familiar with PrizePicks, they are a new partner of the show. We have an opportunity for you to sign up. They're available in almost every state. And if you don't live in a state where it's available, you probably live close to one where there is. Also available in Canada. If you use the code BBB or follow any of the links that you can find on the YouTube channel, on our Twitter, anywhere there, you get 100% instant deposit bonus up to $100. So put $100 in, turns immediately into $200. Again, you can take anywhere from 2 to 5 players here into your entry, win up to 10 times what you actually put in there. So a great way for you to put together some players. Again, like Matt mentioned, you could do fantasy points. They also have stats and things. Great way to put together some fun wagers. That's right. There are some futures. I didn't actually.
You do some NFL futures. You can do Patrick Mahomes yards. You can do some rushing touchdowns, whatever you want. Even like future fantasy points. I was looking. I think it was like Patrick Mahomes over 400 total fantasy points for the year. There's a lot of fun stuff you can play around with on PrizePicks.
I love that. That's all great stuff. So check that out. Make sure you sign up. Make sure you use our promo code. And while you're at it, sign up for WinBet. Up to $500 risk-free bet. Could have used that on that 8-1 field bet yesterday.
What's $500 times 8?
Action.
I don't really know, but that's pretty good.
I think
8 times 5, 40. It's $4,000.
A couple months.
$4,000.
You could have quite a bit of fun with that.
You lost it.
See,
not on us.
Matt takes care of business. Thanks, everybody, for watching this week. Thank you, Matt. You were fantastic this week. We look forward to having you back. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at mrooney23. Make sure you send him a picture of your first WinBet bet, and he'll make sure he gets you a Yeti or something fun if they run out of Yetis. I've got Matt on the hook. We'll figure something out. Make sure, everybody, you give us a like, you give us a rating and review. Andy's coming back on Monday. He would love to come back to a bunch of those. So thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.